You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Okay, let's talk some Australian rules football. The AFL Pacific Cup on in the week ahead, starting tomorrow through till next weekend. It's being played at the Maroochydore Multi-Sports Complex on Australia's Sunshine Coast. Now our men's team, the Falcons, and our first ever women's team, the Kahu, are taking part in the AFL Pacific Cup. New Zealand Falcons head coach is Chris Mundell, who joins us now. Chris, thanks for taking the time. Tell us a bit about the AFL Pacific Cup and what lies ahead for you over the week or so ahead.
Yeah, so the Pacific Cup is the first international carnival competition we've held since 2017. The former iteration was called the International Cup, where countries from all over the world, about 24 countries, came to Melbourne and played. With the restrictions of COVID, we haven't been able to get back into that system since then. And this is the AFL's new regional model, where for the first time the nations from the Pacific will get together and compete, and runs alongside a Transatlantic Cup and a European Cup, which has also been held recently. So really exciting for us to get back out into the international foray and to get back and try and avenge our 1 point loss, which is still stings in a number of our players.
Even 7 years later.
Exactly.
So does that mean that with a slightly different format now, if you were to win the Pacific Cup, will that feed you into another competition?
That hasn't been outlined yet from the AFL. We would obviously love to play as much international footy as we can. We love getting across the pitch and exposing our local players to the full big wide world of AFL. So yeah, that would be our preference, but we haven't had that outlined yet.
How strong is the squad you've pulled together?
Yeah, really good. Like, we've got a really good mix of experience. As I say, we've got probably 8 or 9 players who were in that 2017 final, and we've got a real grudge to bear. And you add to that a whole group of players who, some of them may not have even been playing footy when we last played back then. So a lot of youth and experience. It's a good mix. AFL New Zealand's done a huge amount of work in the development space and increasing our skills and capacity and capability of our players. So we think we're going over with a stronger team across the board than we have probably ever put forward. What
sort of build-up have you managed to pull together before you head away, Chris?
Yeah, so a lot of our players are obviously rugby and football converts. They play through their winter sports there. Our local AFL competitions run from sort of September to December. So that is the players last September to December were playing club footy. That then elevated them into our AFL New Zealand Premiership, which is essentially a bit of a franchise model. We get the best players from around the country together. From there, we then pick our national squad, who have been training sort of in conjunction with both their other sports and now the local club leagues for probably 5 or 6 months. So it's spread out. You know, we've got players based in Australia, Christchurch, Dunedin, Whangarei, Auckland, all around the place, but we keep together with the wonders of technology and connect wherever we can to try and ensure we're all aligned.
So who will be your stiffest opposition across this week?
Look, Papua New Guinea. They are the team that beat us by a point back in 2017. We've only ever beaten them once across sort of the last 20-odd years. They are a really strong nation who have a lot of their players playing both locally but also in Australia. They've got a really strong base and will be fierce competition. And so we're both, we're really looking forward to that challenge. That's what they're our team we're targeting across this competition. But that does not to say, the likes of Nauru, where AFL's their national sport, Fiji, Tonga, those guys, we know what those countries produce in terms of athletes, and we're certainly going to be ready for them.
Are you able to do any scouting of any sort, or are you really just concentrating on what you guys are all about?
Look, a bit of both. So we try wherever we can to get an understanding of our positions, but it is very tricky, Not at this level, not many games are televised and not many games are able to be seen. So wherever we can, we've tried to get an understanding. We have, a network of people who know these countries and know how they go. So we pull from that. But as you say, our primary focus is on, can we achieve how we want to play? Can we get our game plan to be more effective than theirs, essentially?
How do you assess the strength of the sport here in New Zealand at present?
Look, I think, we took a real hammering with COVID as a smaller sport. AFL New Zealand were doing a huge amount of work prior to COVID in the school space. We had a primary school and a high school competition that was beginning to create a pool of talent and a pool of players that can start to develop further. So that really set us back, and we've gone backwards a little bit, and we are rebuilding and re-getting ourselves into that school space. But as I said earlier, what's been really positive is that the overall level of the players who play the sport across the country has increased through exposure, through more games on TV, seeing more of these superstars and getting down to their local clubs. So, while we're rebuilding in terms of our player development base, we are still working with that, an interested parties and a keen group of players to develop the skills.
Yeah, you mentioned before that a lot of them come from other codes. Can you see a time, Chris, where AFL becomes somebody's first choice?
Yeah, we hope so. That's certainly what we want to try and work towards. We've always positioned the sport in this country as complementary to those other sports, as a way to improve fitness, improve cross-code skills. If you look at the likes of rugby and league, there's a lot of AFL skills now being used with the cross kicks and the high overhead marks, etc. So while we have traditionally positioned ourselves as complementary to them, come and learn a new sport to improve the skills for those sports, we'd certainly love to see a time where AFL is New Zealand's first choice. And certainly in the female space, where the AFLW is a real tangible opportunity for our athletes to get into, it's a little shorter runway than it is for the men. And so that's a real opportunity for us to target and say, look, hey, as a young female athlete, come and give AFL as your primary sport, and you've got a pathway to play AFLW and be a professional. Yeah,
and also, I guess, I think that's right, isn't it? This is the first time a women's team has taken part in a competition of this sort. The Kahu are going to be playing alongside the Falcons in this competition?
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. AFL New Zealand have worked towards 2020 was our first initial attempt to try and get a female team across, but COVID put the kibosh on that. So they have been patiently building and developing and recruiting more players, and the female game over here has really grown those last 4 years. So it's going to be hugely exciting to see our Kahu girls take the field for the first time in an international carnival and really take it to these other nations.
I've just had a look at the weather forecast for the week ahead in terms of temperatures for the Sunshine Coast, Chris. They're high 20s, so your players will be nice and warm.
Yeah, look, it's going to be something to think about. A lot of our New Zealand-based players are coming out of a pretty damp and wet New Zealand winter.
Yep.
And, it's going to be a bit of a shock to get into those high, humid conditions. I mean, I looked at the forecast the other day, and there's a lot of rain is forecast as well. So that tropical kind of environment is going to be something that's new to our players. What does it mean to the slippery ball, or what does it mean to our hydration and our recovery, all those kind of things. So, but that's all part of the journey. It's part of the excitement of going on these kind of campaigns.
Yeah, and so good to have it back, as you say, for the first time in 7 years. Chris, all the best for the week ahead. I hope it goes brilliantly for you and also for the women's team as well. We look forward to seeing the results coming through.
Yeah, really appreciate the time. Thanks, mate.
No, thank you, Chris. Chris Mundell there. He's the coach of our men's AFL team, the Falcons. Our women are called the Kahu, and both sides are heading to Australia. I think they head off tomorrow. The Maroochydore Multi-Sports Complex on Australia's Sunshine Coast. Maroochydore, wonderful part of Australia, although I get the feeling it'll be more business rather than pleasure for the Falcons and the Kahu. We'll keep an eye on how their results go over the next week or so.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.